Hey there guys, so after having somebody recommend doing a little project like this, and also after seeing it mentioned on Twitter, we're just going to go ahead and do this. We're going to go play ice hockey, and we're going to start testing out the different combinations of players that you can have and sort of see which one we like best. So let's go ahead and just sort of jump straight into this. As you can see, I've got things that changed around a little bit here in RetroArch so that it will actually not pause every time that I click away from the screen in my emulator and stuff. We're gonna play with Canada. I don't know, let's play against the USA every time. How does that sound? And we're gonna do 1 for speed, and we'll just do 7 in terms of minutes. We'll just sort of keep it this way. I think for all of these, just for fun. This isn't scientific at all. We're just, sort of figuring this stuff out for ourselves. I'm not consulting any sort of guide or anything like that. This is literally just, let's go give this a try and see what happens. So here we go with all small guys against medium guys. We could technically do it if we want to do a 2-player and see like how it really compares if you have 2 guys. If you have like different combinations of the 2 teams or whatever, but I don't know, we're not going to go too deep into that. Anyways, you can see we've already scored, which clearly demonstrates that we're the superior team. I haven't figured out yet mathematically exactly how many of these permutations we would need. I don't think it's as simple as doing the factorial, but maybe I'm wrong. Like, the reason why I don't think it's as simple is because, I'm not looking for all possible permutations of, like, all 4 of these slots, right? So, like, if we have, 1 medium guy, 1 big guy, and 2 small guys, for example, like, there are all sorts of different ways you get that because there are 4 slots, but we only care about having that happen once. Like, as long as we play with that once, then it matters because there's no other difference between players. Also, I don't think it really matters so much whether we win or lose, because, this is just mostly like what is the experience like with this. And so far I can tell you that with small guys, though it's nice to be fast, it can get really annoying. Alright, come back, come back, come back. Alright. Anyway, so I hope that all of you guys are having a great day. There we go. It out here in Northern Virginia, it is absolutely freezing this morning. It's Fahrenheit is about like 11 degrees, so that's what, probably like -10 or something Celsius. One of the reasons why I wanted to play this game is because it's just like Canada out there. It's been a while since I've experienced this kind of cold. Of course, if you're in Canada, you probably know that it definitely gets a lot colder than that. I remember back in the good old days when we lived in Ottawa, I remember it would be -40, and the coldest days were always the days when the sun was shining for whatever reason. And I remember looking like up at the sky and thinking like, it's like, I don't know, it's like the sun is like mocking you, right? It's like, oh yeah, you want it to be warm, right? I just had a guy punch the air. I've never seen that before. Alright, there we go. I keep pushing A to shoot. I should be pushing B to shoot. So, anyway, that's part of this. That's part of this whole project. It's like, remember how this game is played. Figure out the controls. There we go. I think it's actually a little bit easier to score with those guys, even though they don't have a lot of power on their shots, because they're so fast you can get right into position really easily. Anyway, though, yeah, it was really cold this morning when I went out to walk the dog. Our poor dog was not having a great time, I'll tell you that. And it's only going to get worse. So tomorrow's supposed to be a little bit warmer, and then we have this weekend, which is going to be legendarily cold, apparently, or we're supposed to have a whole bunch of snow. And so this is a little bit different than when we were in Canada. I remember when we were in Ottawa, we would run into things like freezing rain and stuff. I'll never forget this. I had to go into work. We had a freezing rain outside. Everything on the ground was like absolutely frozen, and it didn't matter. We still had work. Nothing was canceled. I showed up like 2 hours late, right? I was working at the U.S. Embassy, and you would think that my boss, a U.S. citizen, would like be understanding, but she's looking at me like, "How come you were late?" Like, because I couldn't walk outside, It was really, really bad. Like, we couldn't even go down like the front steps. It was so bad, because it was nothing but like a massive sheet of ice. Anyway, but everything just sort of went on as normal. What I remember most about that, though, is that our kids were not of school age quite yet, but I remember that schools would still be open. In fact, it was so cold that you couldn't take the bus. Like the school buses would stop running, but you still had to go to school anyway. So we would see these kids like, slipping and sliding on the ground, and nobody even thought anything of it. Like, I was because of the job I was doing, I was reading the newspapers and stuff all the time, and like I would have known if there was some sort of like community argument or something about whether this is allowed or not, and nobody seemed to care. It was just normal for people to say, oh yeah, it's cold, but you still have to go to school. You still have to figure out your own way to get there and all that stuff. So anyway, that's my memory of the cold in Canada. I've got a ninja ski mask actually that I bought when I was there for what I would walk, because I used to walk to work. We used to live over in the Byward Market. Byward Market. We used to live over in. I used to work over near Byward Market is what I wanted to say. We used to live over in Edinburgh. Which is probably about like maybe 20-minute walk away or something like that. I used to walk by the homeless shelters to get to work. Anyway, the thing is that it was close enough to walk, and so I would walk every day. But at the same time, like it would be so cold that I got to the point where I had to have like I had to go buy ski goggles finally because my eyes started to freeze. Like it's really, really cold. If you've never been to a place where it gets down to like -40, you don't know what cold really is like. I mean, it's just incredibly, incredibly cold. How come I got the penalty? I think that this ref is biased. That's what we have here. We have blatant nationalism from this ref. Anyways, yeah, there's all the cold stories. Where we are right now, it doesn't usually get this cold. When we get snow, like people here go nuts if there's any sort of snow because nobody knows how to drive in it. So it gets pretty crazy. Again, not like Canada. The thing I remember the most is when they would bring out the Bring out the not the bulldozers, but like the dump trucks and stuff like that to pick up all the snow. I remember this happening, so if it was gonna snow again and it had already snowed and there was like, a couple feet out on the ground or whatever, they would bring out a bunch of like, dump trucks and they would pick up the snow so that it could snow again. And you would get, snowbanks up that would be a couple feet high, in the dead of winter. The other thing I remember is that on the Gatineau River, everything would be like totally frozen. It was frozen to the point where, would I get an extra life? No, I got my guy back. We get to the point on the river where you could park a car out there. So I remember walking to work and looking over the river and seeing some guy who parked his Jeep, like, just sitting on the ice. And like, anyway, pretty interesting stuff. Something that I'd never seen before, but stuff like that would happen, and okay, you need a parking spot, just go straight over onto the lake and there you have it, or onto the river. And like the car, it was not like the car was there for like 2 days or something. I'm talking like the car was there a couple months. So that's what it was like, but they were smart enough to drive it off as soon as it started to warm up. And going over to Gatineau was also an experience, of course, if you've ever lived in Ottawa. I mean, you go over and you cross the bridge to Quebec, it's like right there, it's really close. But Gatineau, even though it's right next to Anglophone Canada, still has this very Quebecois kind of French feel to it. So it's just totally different. And you would still find people occasionally who, would not be able to speak English, or who would speak English with like a very, very heavy, French-Canadian accent and stuff like that. It's really interesting stuff. Anyway, I used to do visa interviews over at the when I was in the consular section of the embassy, and I speak a little bit of French, but I get these people who, for whatever reason, who were from Quebec, who come talk with us, and I couldn't understand like a word that they would say. I mean, it's just incredible, Quebecois French is very, very different. So we would get a lot of people like from Africa and from, places like that, and they're just pretty easy to understand them. Why did I get the penalty again? I didn't even start the fight. Anyway, but So there's some of my Canada stories, some of my freezing cold Ottawa stories. And the funny thing is that Ottawa is not even like really cold Canada, right? We used to talk all the time in the office about, you know, winter peg and stuff like that. So anyway, nothing quite like Canada. That's also not the only really frozen place that I've been. We before Canada, we lived in Shenyang, China, which is a little bit warmer than Ottawa. But if you go up to Harbin, China, which I did do in the winter once, it's kind of Canada cold, except there's not good heating, so you have to keep your jacket on everywhere. And anyway, that's a lot of fun. Okay, come on, ref, you gotta give them the penalty this time, right? I mean, it can't just be me every single time. Anyway, whatever. I know that you can't do like the total punch out in this game that you can do with like the NHL games and stuff like that, but even still, I think that the fights in this game are a lot of fun. Just watching the guys like duke it out and stuff. That was a great addition to this franchise. I wonder if I can score double shorthanded. See, that's one of the problems here. Every time I try to do a slap shot, I end up getting in a fight because my guy's a little shrimp. Oh, there we go. Yeah, he doesn't have any power at all. So the strategy with this type of team is you just want to nudge it in. Anyway, so talking quickly here about the channel, what to expect and stuff. There's my other guy. The next video is probably going to be about the 1919 Stanley Cup. I know that there's a lot of people who've done videos on this. If you've watched the videos I've done on other channels, you know that I tend to do things a little bit differently than everybody else. So you can sort of look forward to things being a little bit different than the other videos that you'll find on YouTube. I'm going to use a lot of original like newspaper articles and stuff. I'm actually writing the script probably today. I'll probably film it tomorrow. That video should be out on Saturday, so you know. Yeah, it's interesting. I've been doing a little bit of reading. I didn't realize how different the rules, I guess, were in the PCHA compared to the NHL. The other thing I didn't realize when I was a kid, so I had read stories about this from like, there are like books for kids about like hockey stories and stuff. I think my grandparents had one of them for some reason. And I had known about this series, but what I never realized is that back in those days, the NHL only had 3 teams. And the 1919 NHL season actually ended early because one of the teams folded. So they were down to 2 teams when they had their 2-team playoff for the NHL championship. Then the Montreal Canadiens ended up winning, and the Habs went to that Stanley Cup final. But that gives you sort of an idea of like, you know, just how popular the sport was. I mean, they couldn't have more than 3 teams in the NHL that year. And it's not like the Pacific Association was doing much better. They also only had 3 teams. So really, really interesting, the early years of hockey, a sport that was definitely popular, but I mean, I don't know, it was definitely a professional sport at that time. There's no question about that. I thought we were going to get extra time like in soccer. It was definitely a professional sport at the time, but it's also definitely a lot different than what we're used to today. So anyway, it's going to be fun to sort of go back into that and kind of, you know, look at the different things that were going on at the time and all of that. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed that. We'll have more of this. We'll go back tomorrow, I think, to NHLPA 93 on the Super Nintendo, and then once we're done with that, we'll do the Genesis. We'll play a lot of this stuff. But for now, we're going to do probably more quick games like this, and we'll sort of alternate between one and the other. So I hope you like that. I'll talk with you again tomorrow. Bye.